Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we have to talk about Keyremapper, macroing, and whether all this is against the rules, not against the rules, should be or shouldn't be. And just to jump straight into the topic, I wanted to pull a couple of tweets from a couple pro players. We had FaZe Bizzle, and a lot of this controversy has just been kind of jumping out at us because it's really stemmed off of this one video coming out from Krashy that we're going to take a look at here in a little bit. But we have FaZe Bizzle just asking, so just so I know, am I allowed to double movement macro if I wanted to? And then he actually asks Krashy and asks if he could help him set it up. So, I'm going to go ahead and put the video up on the screen, but you can see Krashy actually posted this video of, him making a play in Elite Scrims. And I think the thing that's in question is that it's pretty obvious that he's using, some kind of automated double movement binds, some kind of a Keyremapper or a macro, whatever, however terminology you want to use it. Realistically, it's not much of a macro, or as much as I understand it. And I think what's interesting about it is that it's really started a dialogue on whether or not something like this should be allowed or whether or not something like this is bannable. And you have Aspect coming from Sentinels. He said, so is there like a point not to use Keyremapper for double movement? Like if it's not bannable, why shouldn't I install it right now? And that's the big question, right? Is it bannable? Is this something that Epic is going to take action against? How do they detect it? Is it something that you can only get banned by, being outed or having footage of? Because there's a lot of those manual bans that happen as well. So to kind of break it down, in my opinion, macros are the automation of a series of key presses and actions that are programmed and timed and are very, very automated. Now, you're going to hear me use this word a lot, automated, automation, and the use of macros, in my opinion, are definitely a form of cheating. Now, if you were to create a macro that pickaxes, takes a wall, edits, and takes a shot, and literally just do it all in one action, and all the player has to do is move their mouse according to those actions and that timing, then yeah, definitely I would have to say that I believe that is a form of cheating, because you're actually taking something that a player would physically have to do, but you're automating it. You're creating a series of perfect action. Essentially that's what it is. It's perfect action. Now, with Keyremapper is a program that allows you to kind of like in sequence create like two key presses at once. I don't really know what Keyremapper is primarily used for, but in the context of using it for double movement binds, essentially what you can do is you can set a secondary movement bind in the game in Fortnite, and then you can key remap your A and your D key for movement in order to double press and press those secondary key binds as well. So essentially, Keyremapper on a single press is automating that second key press. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't really think that this is too aggressive or even too close to being a form of cheating, and I want to explain why. Having double movement binds and having like double movement, 360 movement, however you want to call it, is like a quality of life change. This isn't something that is going to innately get you kills. This isn't something that is going to drastically improve your experience or give you a massive competitive edge. But it is something that's going to be helpful to you, and it is something that, in terms of the type of movement, controller players already have, and any PC player, if they were willing to set this up or invest, a little bit of time, they could also set it up as well. So I'm going to be honest, I think that this could evolve into a new meta of setup, right? Like a new meta of the game where people are just optimizing their programs and the way that they play and the way that their settings are, unless Epic comes down and essentially says that this is bannable. Now, the kind of nail in the coffin is the fact that it is run through a third-party program. This is not something that is offered to you in-game, and it's actually rather similar to setting up like an edit reset or like a scroll wheel reset rather, because you actually do use the secondary binds that are in-game, but it's not automated directly through the game. You're actually using a program to simultaneously press two keys as opposed to just pressing one. Now, that's where it really kind of crosses the line, I suppose you could say. And I think it's really going to come down to Epic and what they decide on it. And the scary part is that anybody can use this. I think that there's almost zero detection for it, and I'm going to talk about detection with macros here in just a minute. But ultimately, anybody could use this, and that's kind of a dangerous thing, right? Because anybody could be doing this, anybody could be using macros, and there's hardly any detection for it. And if it is bannable, that's dangerous not only for the player base, but Epic is going to have to make some kind of decisions about how they decide to ban. Most likely it would be through manual review, checking streams, looking at footage, and deciding whether or not they're going to ban a player for using a third-party program. So there's definitely a little bit of risk in it, I'll be honest, especially if you're competing for money. Now, obviously, in some of my examples, I'm just running around in creative, just to kind of show off how it works and what that 360 movement looks like. And at the end of the day, if a player really wants to get that movement, they can definitely set up the secondary binds and press them and try to get good at it, but it's just much more complicated for such a small quality of life change. And for me personally, when double movement binds started to get popularized, I wasn't interested in using them at all, and without Keyremapper, I probably never will use them, and so yeah, I don't know, I'm just not really that interested in trying to learn for such a small quality of life change. It's definitely a benefit. Now, macros. I want to talk a little bit about macros. People automating their edits, people, automating wall taking, or maybe even editing into a shot. I really don't know what all people that macro do with it. I mean, I definitely have seen some creative macros that kind of like are used for clout, right? And like making creative videos where they do crazy edits in a sequence. But macros are a much more aggressive form of automation, in my opinion. You can really time out the macro. You can make it so perfect that it's impossible to mess it up. The only thing you have to do is follow your mouse and your movement to the macro and to the timing of the macro. And that is very perfect. That is something that a human being otherwise couldn't do. No human being can do the same sequence of key presses perfect every single time with perfect timing. That's the big thing, the perfect timing. So macros are definitely a form of cheating, in my opinion, and that's obviously not going to be allowed. But I want to say, this is the crazy part about it, I think that there's almost zero detection for it. Now, I want to explain why I think there's no detection for it. If you think about what a macro is, it's a series of key presses that a player could do, but it's timed out perfectly. In order for Epic or any game company to monitor macroing, they would have to have some kind of system, some kind of logging, data tracking, data storage, and maybe even like a machine learning bot. I don't know, but essentially they would have to be tracking all of your actions. They would have to be tracking all of the timing of the actions, and they would have to be comparing those timings, those actions against themselves. There are millions of players that play this game. Millions and millions of players that play this game. In my personal opinion, I don't think that is a viable strategy for a developer to track actions, store the data, and then cross-examine that data against itself. So yeah, I do think that macroing is cheating. I think that full-on automation of, like a perfectly timed sequence of events is cheating, but I personally cannot imagine that there is any way for them to detect that, and that any bans that are happening off of the back of macroing are through manual review. So that's where my thoughts are. I think that Keyremapper could be a new meta for Fortnite. I do think that it could be a quality of life change that PC players decide to use if it kind of seems safe, if Epic doesn't start banning for it through manual review, but I'm definitely curious on your thoughts as well. To kind of recap, I don't think it's that bad. If I see a clip of someone using it like Krashy, it is what it is. I'm not that worried about it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we think. It matters what Epic thinks. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Should we be allowed to use Keyremapper for the double movement? What are your thoughts on macroing? Do you think any of this is detectable? I do think it is. I just doubt that they're doing it. I think it would be an insane ordeal for them to track all that data and then compare it against themselves, or compare it against itself. And yeah, I just really doubt that that's happening. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I definitely appreciate you checking out this video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future content. I appreciate it again, and I'll see you on the next video.